Let the record show that I'm coming into this as a fan solely of the movies. Never watched the show, as my older brother was more of a Ninja Turtles and DuckTales fan. I just thought it looked cool. And that turned into a semi-obsession for the rest of childhood. I collected all the toys from the first 2 movies, had both copies of the original DS game. Transformers 1 and 2 were my go-to movies on a long car trip, and I even wrote a 4-part comic book series bridging the gap between the first 2 films with my own new characters, one named after my favorite stop-motion Transformers YouTube channel. I've seen them at least 30 times each, and I get made fun of for liking these movies all the time, and I've earned my right to say this. So, allow me to be subjective right off the bat. Transformers Age of Extinction and Transformers The Last Knight are embarrassing, violating garbage piles of movies and should be erased from the earth. I hate the worsening quality of the special effects. I hate how all the Transformers have so many new moving parts to make them look more human. I hate all the quips and childish spite. I especially hate the lack of effort with the score, reducing it to a series of 2 alternating wah notes. I'm sorry, this is turning into another Sideways video. And I just miss Linkin Park so much. The general consensus is that these movies are all the same. And speaking in terms of iconography and the like, yeah. Sweeping low-angle shots, white firework explosions, oversaturated motion, overlapping dialogue, generically hot female flashback setting up in Guffin, and how Transformers were intertwined with history. However, for those who need a refresher, the latest duology actually brought a lot new to the table. There is a really personal motivation for Optimus and the Autobots to get involved in the conflict. Same with the humans. There's a strong plot progression from beat to beat. Nobody's suddenly teleported to Egypt, or balancing 4 subplots that intertwine hardly at all. Well, not you. But there's some continuity in theming and imagery. The war against the Autobots, the Knights, the Quintessons, kind of. Beyond Sam just going to college and getting a job. Objectively, they're trying to be better movies. But I can't seem to care. Why? Today, I want to put my stake in the ground in defense of blockbuster filmmaking as a valid entry point for aspiring filmmakers to understand the craft without facing all the gatekeeping that inherently comes with trying to study the classics. And of course, I had to start in the least credible, most baffling place. Let's get into it. Oh, and obviously I wouldn't be anywhere without Lindsay Ellis's series on Transformers in the context of film theory, so go check it out. This is a bit more technical rather than theoretical, but her work is tremendous either way you look at it. I will still stand by the fact that Bay's first 3 films, Transformers 2007, Revenge of the Fallen, and Dark of the Moon, are engaging action blockbusters that serve their purpose. You may say that's only because those movies came out when I was the target demo, but hey, shut up. But there's just something about these stupid movies that keeps them on my mind. I've got to justify my childhood obsession somehow. Michael Bay is nothing if not purposeful, and a bit obnoxious.
You're throwing those on us?
Yeah, no, and then I'm gonna slap your ass with this dowel.
It almost physically pains me to be taking up this much time talking about something so mindless when I could be talking about the smaller films, directors, and writers that nobody talks about in online discourse other than just saying, go see it, because we value the blind movie-going experience. I want so badly to talk about how Trey Edward Schultz is flipping genres again, or the fact that Zola was immediately forgotten after Sundance, or Honey Boy. That's it, I just want to talk about Honey Boy. But this won't stop bugging me until I figure out why. There's some merit to blockbuster films, right? These are the films and filmmakers gaining the widest audience recognition, so that's gotta say something about what we as an audience respond to. But with these films specifically, we see that if you do something half-assed, you might as well have not done it at all. And maybe there's a divide in how we write for and view blockbusters and indies. The main reason? Plot versus character-driven stories. One always takes a backseat when the other is at the forefront. Let's start with story structure and see if that covers it.
Oh God, why?
If these movies were to have a cardinal sin, it'd be the fact that their plots are hilariously incoherent, and nobody credible can even attempt to sort out the order of events. As I already said, 4 and 5 had a lot of potential, but when it came to following through on those interesting new plotlines and character arcs, they devolved into repetitive, non-escalating confrontations. Even with the characters fighting towards the same unified goal, making the action scenes much clearer in terms of an endpoint, which they all desperately need, the stakes again never escalate. That's the trouble with the MacGuffin hunt plot, without having two sides actively chasing the same thing. At worst, you either end up with jumbled motivations, or just a series of obstacles that act more like hurdles rather than actual pushback. Oh yeah, I'll get to you soon, my white whale. But just like The Rise of Skywalker, God curse its name, Bay's Transformers films almost seem afraid to linger on any plot points. Due to the bizarre editing choices, some characters are reserved for only the first half of the movie, and everything about them is resolved midway into the movie. Alternatively, characters like Stanley Tucci aren't introduced until over the halfway point in Age of Extinction. It's unfair to say that they're drop plot points. It's rather inserting moments when you're supposed to care into scenes that don't otherwise have an engaging element to prop up their exposition. It's trying to keep the frame just busy enough to keep everyone 10% engaged, with the other 90% being absolute, total confusion. The best way I can describe how Bay edits his first three films is that it's akin to a Lego game cutscene, skipping every other beat or lingering on something innocuous for way too long before getting to the point of the scene. Michael from Lessons from the Screenplay did a fantastic video about how a scene's structure should be a reflective microcosm of a film's general three-act structure. I don't want to make myself sound dumber just by repeating his points but worse, so I'll just plug a little bit of that video right here.
And each turning point in the scene, the inciting incident, the midpoint, and the crisis, essentially asks her, what are you willing to do to get what you want? And her decisions reveal character. The scene moves the story forward as well. In Act 3, Clarice is rewarded for overcoming the obstacles, as the scene reaches its climax and Lecter finally tells her what she needs to know.
And you said that I was very close to the way we would catch him. What did you mean, Doctor?
But you want to know, don't you, dude?
So let's see some examples from Dark of the Moon.
Former Special Agent Seymour Simmons.
Bill, big fan. Great to be here.
Now, Agent Simmons, you would have us believe that it is...
Buy my book before it's too late, people. You want a piece of me, Bill? You want to get naked? I'm ready.
This time, Vicky, who keeps calling me 5 times today.
Kid, what's he want?
I called you because the Decepticons are back and I want to know why and I need your help.
Dutch! Tell Megatron, let's tango.
You were supposed to travel to the dark side of the moon then. It all got shut down. The question is, why?
I've seen these. These aren't rocks. These are pillars. Alien pillars for a space bridge. We know about them because the Autobots have 5 of these.
Decepticons must have raided the ship.
Why would they leave Sentinel when he's the only one that could use them?
Unless...
Here's one thing they still need.
If you take these sequences as a cohesive whole, then half of the scene is dedicated to the setup beat, and the rest of the scene rushes to play catch-up. That's if there's build-up at all, risking the audience losing important information that could flesh out the story.
It says NASA launched in 2009. See, forensics show Wang may mess with the code preventing it from mapping the far side of the moon, which is also the dark side.
Patrick Dempsey is a really good foil to Sam's character as well. As a Transformer intermediary, someone who has everything Sam wants in life, like purpose, his girl, and he's good at pushing Sam as a motivator. But he disappears for 40 minutes in the middle of the film, leaving Sam to fumble around aimlessly looking for his purpose again. Every beat exists in a vacuum. Sticking with Dark of the Moon, we go from a highway car chase to a major plot twist / Autobot death scene to Sam having a heart-to-heart with his parents about a breakup in less than 10 minutes of screen time. There's less to build up to. Everything moves and thinks laterally. I really like Dark of the Moon's slow unraveling of a massive conspiracy. It's handled with some really decent skill, but it doesn't have any connective tissue between the scenes. It's like a bunch of little hills on a tiny little kiddie roller coaster. Most shallow blockbusters get that one emotional center scene that's supposed to contextualize the rest of the film and the characters' actions, giving them depth at the bottom of the 8th so that they can artificially raise the stakes in the climax by feeling like there's something to lose emotionally. We sort of get that in the first three, where the film literally slows down for a moment, but the moments are still hollow of any real characterization. But in the last two films, there are real sequences that attempt to play out like real plot points, with setups, payoffs, character growth, all achieving what a scene has to do bare minimum, rather than just spouting exposition. But there's a reason Cade Yeager fails to size up as a good protagonist. It's not just because I love Shia LaBeouf.
Just do it!
Because even though he has a deeper desire...
I'm an inventor. This could be a game changer for me.
Yeah, I know. He gets nothing from the hero's journey, and the plot gives him no growth and no reward in that regard, only allowing for minimal screen time to show any real growth with letting his daughter go. Whereas Sam is less specific, more general with his goal.
Shit that matters, and I just kind of like a job where I matter again.
So that when the plot is thrust on him, his goal can shape itself around it. And early on, Sam's answering or refusing the call further defines his character too.
This isn't my war.
Not yet. But I fear it soon will be.
Everything I said about 4 and 5's flaws can be applied to the first trilogy. But the reason they don't stick out is because there isn't a dip in quality between the scenes in terms of pacing, visual language, etc. Unbridled Bayham is a style that's relentless and a style of its own. But it's when he's let off the gas for just a moment that the car fully loses control and skids off the road into a ditch. The difference with The Last Night versus the first three movies is that when those scenes have a jarring pace in the way that they're cut together, skipping from plot point to plot point without letting the emotion set in, for each making it very confusing, they are all following the same plot line. They're not switching to different subplots, and therefore it's more jarring because the continuum of action is the same. And therefore, it is much harder to digest. A very shallow ditch. In an attempt to, quote-unquote, streamline his narratives, Bay has inadvertently expanded his film's core issue from bad pacing to being emotionally incomprehensible. The moment that floored me into writing this was in Age of Extinction. Marky Mark is squaring up with the Funky Bunch in some random Hong Kong apartment, eventually pushing him out the window to his death. This is the culmination of their conflict, one that only arose when Mark took a tire to the guy's warrant.
My face is my warrant.
And before that, he was just doing his job. He's trying to tie a more intimate human conflict into the larger battle without having a reason to have it in the first place. It's a sit down, shut up, don't ask questions, fast-paced style of filmmaking that makes you cheer and boo like a Pavlovian dog at the moments you're designed to, without the residual letdown you have when you leave the theater from unanswered questions, like in a J.J. Abrams movie. Oh, not yet. Oh, but just try me. I just sort of accept the bizarre things in the movies, and the questionable racism because I have become so desensitized to it all. It all blends together. Each Transformers movie experience is wholly contained within itself. Each beat in the stories holds only as much meaning as it needs to get to the next one. To borrow again from Lindsay Ellis's video, the reason it's so hard to remember what happens in any of these movies is the lack of contrast between story-important beats and everything else. It all blends together. It also doesn't help that all the characters are written to be the exact same brash, sarcastic, accusatory archetype. And say it with me, when everything's important, nothing is. The difference between Shia's trilogy and 4 and 5 is that with Shia, the resolutions to plot points are the high notes, and with 4 and 5, the setups are. They are, in essence, going to be narrative letdowns more than anything else. If you don't follow through on a good idea, then it all flops, but if your content is consistent with itself, you question it less. Like that show I'm probably supposed to like, but I don't for so many reasons I don't have the energy to get into. It's like the oldest kid with more potential being scolded for something innocuous, and the younger brother being showered with praise for cleaning his room. Maybe that's why they're receiving poorer audience reception as time goes on. Maybe it's that audiences are getting tired of seeing the same story over and over again. Or maybe they only started to care once they realized there was a chance they could be seeing something just a little bit better. Maybe that's all a little cynical. Maybe quarantine has got me getting all philosophical and introspective and studying film and media theory for fun. But I still really like the first three films. I can't help but cheer when Optimus first transforms, or get super jumpy when the forest battle's about to start, or be at the edge of my seat for basically the entire back half of Dark of the Moon. that whole hour and a half of pure plot payoff. Anyway, there's a reason this stuff is popular, and there's a reason people keep showing up and showing enthusiasm towards these movies. That's why I talk about big blockbusters and pop culture things in an analytical way in the series. That's also why I love that studio vehicles are picking up these directors from indie obscurity to puppet their big summer blockbusters, because even with studio interference, it means that we as an audience are getting those little moments I mentioned with Bay that he started adding, but actually having the creative drive and vision to follow it through, and deliver that all in a way unique to the filmmaker. And that is why the second part to this blockbuster auteurism essay, if you want to call it that, will be on one of my favorite blockbuster films to come out in the past few years. Bet you didn't expect that. So anyway, like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to be alerted when that comes out. I hope you all come in with an open mind, hoping to learn something more about screenwriting, but also just to have fun talking about big fun movies. I hope to see you there.